My name is Carrie Keck, and I would like to welcome everyone here today to the Oklahoma City Economic Roundtable Forum for November. Our topic today is we're discussing diversity, equity, and inclusion to create an equitable workplace. Diversity is a strength. Studies show that companies with more diversity are more innovative, teams perform better, and there's more cohesion. I learned that directly with my experience in the military. I worked with people from all over the United States from very diverse backgrounds, and they made our teams better. Providing a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment provides greater access to talent pools. And it's so important for business and economic development in our communities. Diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice. We are so excited to have our panelists and moderator here today. And all of you, thank you again for being here. I would like to draw your attention to the QR codes that are located on your tables. So please scan the QR codes and follow us on social media. And for our In the Spotlight, we have our host, Denise Chambers with the OU Health Sciences Center, and our guest, Cynthia Reed from the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. Thank you both for being here. So for our panel members, we have DJ. What's that? Here you go. Go ahead, ladies. I'll turn it over to you. Sorry.
Well, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your meal, and thank you for being here. Again, my name is Denise Chambers. I'm with the OUHSC. I know our acronym, but give me a moment while I say it out. Even though I work there, I should know that by heart, right? The Oklahoma Health Sciences Center. Was someone going to help me? I heard a voice. Was that? I appreciate you. Oh, hi. Oh, it's so good to see you. And today for our spotlight, we love our community. So if you come here regularly, you know someone's going to be excited to see you. For our spotlight, we have one of our panelists, Mrs. Cynthia Reed, a member of the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. I am so happy I get to chat with you. The purpose of the spotlight is to just take a moment to get to know you on a personal level. We're going to have the panel up here. We're going to ask more specific DEI questions, but this is just all about you. I won't put you under a microscope, but I do want to help everyone get to know you and for me to do that too. We got a chance to sit and talk, and I think one of the things I appreciate the most about you is I mentioned how nervous I get when it comes to interviews. I love working in a room. I'm a social butterfly, but I still always worry, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I not going to connect with someone? And you told me just a moment ago, I've got 30 years experience in this industry, and I've been on several panels. So I pretty much know what to do, and you have no idea. Like that just helped me drop a load of worry on my mind. But with that experience, you also shared with me that in your industry and in your team, there is highs and lows. You have people who are on the team and they feel connected and they feel a part of the mission, and then they have people who get a little worried and then they move on. And we won't go into too much depth of that, but my question to you is, how do you use DEI? No, that's a specific DEI question. I said I was going to talk about you. I got excited. Well, let me take it a step back. I know that you were a PR intern at your local hospital. Is that right? Okay. Tell me a little bit about that experience when you were in high school being a PR intern for the hospital.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I was really fortunate to be part of a program where they would match us with what the career we thought we wanted. And so I did a mentorship with the woman that ran PR for our local hospital in Broken Arrow. It was a small hospital, and it gave me greater confidence that I was moving in the right direction, that my skills and my talents and my interest was a good match. And while I was there, she said, we need an admitting clerk in the ER at night. So would you maybe be interested in a full-time job this summer. So I ended up being an ER admitting clerk, which was also a great learning experience.
I
You
bet.
never know what's going to come in that door. Broken Arrow is a pretty quiet place at night, but and so it wasn't as crazy as doing that in an urban center. But did that for 2 different summers when I was in college. And then while I was in college, I was here at OCU, and I needed more money to pay for school. So I went to work full time my junior year as a police dispatcher. That was a job I could do because it was a rotating schedule, and I worked 2 nights, 2 afternoons, and 1 morning shift. And so it gave me the ability to. It was also quiet. It was in the village, so there were some shifts when we hardly had any calls, so I could study while I worked, and
Good.
and
That's
was
always
able
good.
to maintain a really busy extracurricular schedule, a full time job, a work study program, and still finish school.
So you juggled a lot.
Mhm.
You had several different unique experiences. The ER and the police department, which are both first responders. I hope you've got some good stories to share with at least one.
Maybe later.
Okay, maybe. I tried, you guys. I tried. And you also mentioned that it helped you with some side income. Now, we know when you're in college, food is a big deal.
Mhm.
So were you more of a cafeteria person? I don't think, was DoorDash a thing? Like, how did
Gosh,
you?
no. This was the 80s. There was no internet. We used phones on the wall with push buttons. So no, it was it was definitely more of a hot pot in the room. Yeah, we didn't even have microwaves in our room at that point. So because they were super expensive, so it was cafeteria, fast food, and a hot pot.
So you just had to eat what you were given
Yes,
and make
exactly,
them okay. I
exactly.
can always remember to be humble
Exactly.
and to be grateful for my microwave. I
Yes.
appreciate it. Well, what are you reading? What books are you into these days? What sparks your interest?
Right now, one of the things I've been reading is a book, and I'm gonna not know the name of it. It's a book by Axios, and it's about communication. Axios is they've developed some tools for companies that are based on our attention span today. And so we're implementing a tool that uses some of their principles. So I have been reading some of their information about communication.
You must really love your job. You just told me that you're reading a book that is mainly helping you engage your team more.
Yes, but I will also say I read a lot of fiction. It is, it's an escape for me.
That's the
so
juiciest. That's what I want. What fiction novel? What, is it Harry Potter? Is it someone that we need to know about that it's like?
Right now, the book on my list is Dark Ride by Lou Berney. Lou Berney is a local author. And his books are fantastic. If you haven't read them, you need to pick one up. My favorite of his is Long and Far Away Gone, because it's an Oklahoma
like a
City
love
kind of
story.
story. His stories are typically, he's kind of a mystery writer, but he uses. In that book, he uses some Oklahoma City stories, changes them to be a little bit different, and they're usually about someone who's on a journey, and life changes and how it's really interesting how he mixes that life journey with the mystery and kind of that self-discovery and becoming the person you can be. And they're really great books. So I would strongly recommend. November Road was his last book. It's been optioned for a movie. He's very, very talented. So if you haven't read his stuff, you should.
Well, that's good. And speaking of life journey, I feel like it's a full circle. You're reading a book that talks about life journey, and you have an author who does that. And that's really what I get from you. You started out with PR and intern in high school. You shift to the police department, the ER, and now you're the director. I mean, you're with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber.
Actually, the
explain.
chamber was my first real professional job, I guess is the way I would put that. I had full-time work before, but I went to I saw an ad in the paper, not the way we get jobs today. Applied, sort of kind of knew what the chamber was, didn't exactly, but knew enough that I got a second interview, a third interview, and got the job. And worked there 7.5 years. really through from late 80s, early 90s. I was there until 96 and then left and was at the Oklahoma City Public Schools for about 3.5 years in communications, and then went back where the sky was blue and the grass was green, because school PR is like trench warfare.
I was going to ask you, how did that go?
Yeah, it was 24 dog years.
Okay, got it.
geez.
Got it.
Yeah, that was it was. So the chamber, the job I have now, and the job the succession of jobs I've had with the chamber, I've had the opportunity to work on some really big projects that have changed our city forever. And so I think one of the reasons I went to the school district, I was a product of Oklahoma City Public Schools. We just lived in Broken Arrow for a couple of years, and I hated the way I wanted to change people's perception of the district, because I feel like those kids deserve to be looked at with pride, and not in the way that they were the district was perceived at that time. And so these kids are so important, and so I feel like the two really connected, because if we don't, our education system is such an important part of growing our community. And then some of the projects we've worked on, multiple bond issues to get support for the schools, but also I've worked on all the MAPS campaigns, very actively involved in a campaign right now. So I've worked on more than 20 different community campaigns, and we've reshaped this place, and we've created, and the work we do to attract jobs. Those are life-changing jobs for the people that get them. Sometimes a lot of people say, well, we should only attract this type of job. But I will tell you, for someone that was making $7.50 at McDonald's, that $15 an hour job at Amazon doubled their income. I mean, that is a life-changing job for them. So we need, we are a place where we're one of the few cities in America where we have a solid middle class, and that is. And so that's important too. So all of that work we do to help build the community, grow the community, support businesses' ability to grow, because that's what gives us, that's what creates jobs and allows people to go to work and provide for their families. So that's really important that we do.
Let's give a round of applause for all of that. I mean, you just casually talked about how you made several impacts in the Oklahoma City Public Schools, just casually, like it was, I did this, I did that. The kids need warriors and people who advocate for them every day. And you mentioning that in a way I think it's inspiring for us all. And speaking of inspiring, I hope that your favorite author will make a non-fictional book about you one day, because well, heroes need, I look at you as a hero based on the way that you talk about things, and I think heroes need to eat. We all had some good food. Did everyone like what they enjoyed? Hi, everyone. Okay. I get excited. I tell you, when you're here, you're going to meet people who you see all the time. So it's going to be a good smile. We had some Italian food today. What's your favorite comfort food?
Oh, a hamburger.
Oh, okay.
That
was quick.
When I was in high school, I worked at Johnny's for like 6.5 years. Worked there in college, even some while I was still at the police department. And so I am partly made out of hamburger. It is my favorite thing. I think it should be a food group. It's hands down.
You definitely have become my spirit sister by saying that. So hamburger should be a food group. Well, I'll wrap up with one more question, if that's okay, and then we'll get started with our panel. We were talking about also, when we got to know each other a little bit better, how we treat our gas tanks. I like to keep my gas tank halfway full. I don't like to let it get too low. I'm afraid that I'll get stranded. I've been stranded before, and I know with you, you've told me that your motto is gas tank and a prayer. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about that?
I have to get gas on the way back to the office because it's almost empty. I wait for that to beep, and tell you that you're almost empty. And then I figure, can I get to work and back and back before I have to stop? So it all depends on the weather, my schedule. I've almost run out of gas twice with my new boss, the first 2 times she rode with me. So I'm trying to get a little bit better, but I've never actually run out.
Okay.
Everyone in my family, my friends, they all know I'm like this. Or like, well, so if I'm on the phone in the car, I'm like, I'm sorry, I got to stop and get gas. They're like, of course you do. So
well,
it's just.
Thank you for the perspective. Well, it looks like regardless of how your gas tank is going, you always have enough energy for everything that you're involved with. And I'm glad everyone got a chance to get to know you. Round of applause, people. Thank you so much. Well, we're going to stay here. Then we'll have our MC introduce the rest of the panel. I'll get clipped up and then we'll go ahead and get started. My pen? Oh, yes.
Thank you, ladies, for in the spotlight today. It was so great to find out more about what you've done, Cynthia, in your career. Next, I would like to introduce our panel members. DJ or Donald DeRace. Is that right? If you would come on up. Darius, I apologize. And then Donald or DJ is with Future LGBTQ 100 Leaders 2020. Rose Royal with OG&E Energy. And of course, Cynthia with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce, Cynthia Reed. Thank you all for being here today.
It's on.
Okay.
I love a microphone too, by the way.
Oh, I was gonna say I'll trade you if you don't. I've got the clip. Can you all hear me okay? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Denise Chambers, again with OUHSC. Donald Royce. Why do I want to call you Royals? I'm trying to mix both of your names together. That's not.
That's okay.
Okay. And Cynthia, thank you so much for taking the moment, the time to just help our community know more about DEI efforts through your experiences, through your organizations, and through your accomplishments. I want to start with you, Donald. I understand you recently were honored with an award called the Outstanding Future LGBTQ 100 Leaders. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you help the audience, our luncheon, our community understand what is Outstanding? What is that organization about?
So my day job is I work for a wound manufacturer, so like a wound care manufacturer, I should say. So yeah, not a wound. We don't manufacture wounds. Right.
Oh gosh.
It's med device, and DE&I has always been a big passion of mine. And so my prior company called Convitec, I also was the co-founder and the Americas lead for our Pride or LGBTQ plus employee resource group. There was an organization that we got involved with, and they were called Involve, the people organization, I think is what it was. And they did a great job acknowledging companies that they worked with and the people within those organizations they had multiple different acknowledgement categories that you could be a part of. And so I was nominated by somebody in my organization to be a part of the top 100 list for the LGBTQ plus community of future leaders. 2020 and then also 2021 was when I was acknowledged.
Oh,
so.
We missed that. Okay, well,
No
round of
worries.
applause again. No, thank you so much for sharing. I wanted to say, so you work with a wound care manufacturing company. You don't just go out there hurting people and then.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So Cynthia, that's a connection. The ER wound care, you guys never.
Well, and it's funny. My undergrad is actually in criminal justice, so never went into law enforcement. But yeah, and I'm from Broken Arrow.
Yes, you all should talk a little bit more. Well, I know we got to know a little bit more about you. May I call you Don or Donald? Is that
Don's perfect.
Don it is. And Cynthia, we've everyone got to highlight with you. So I'm gonna spend a little bit more time highlighting you, Rose. Can everyone say it with me? Rose. I keep trying to change your name, unless you have a nickname that I should know.
No, it's Rose.
Okay. I understand that you are with OG&E. Everyone, I'm pretty sure, is very much aware.
I have a bias.
Oh.
The number one company in the state of Oklahoma.
Ooh. Well, give us an elevator speech. What is OG&E as the number one company in the state of Oklahoma? How are they making initiatives to support DEI?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about me. My name is Rose Royal, and I am the Director of Ethics, Equity, and I said Ethics, Equity, and Inclusion with OGE, Oklahoma Gas and Electric. I have over 20 years experience in elevating and uplifting employee journeys. I'm passionate about fairness, integrity, unity in the workplace. And I lead the ethics program with OGE. And we know ethics is really around behaviors and decision making. And so the goal is that the behaviors and decision making are something we can be proud of, right? They are morally acceptable. So when you think about the DEI piece, it fits perfectly with this work. So I'm not DEI, I'm EEI. It fits perfectly in that the ethics piece is around fairness. When you think about it, it's around being inclusive, because you got to talk to people to make sure we're doing the right thing, right? And then respect in the workplace. So I think those two fit very, very well together. And the work that I do every day in and day out is working towards, and we do this at OGE, creating work environments. We're a 121-year-old electric utility steeped in tradition. So think about that. We're trying to turn a big ship. And so day in and day out, that's what I'm working on, is trying to create these environments where people feel like they really belong here in this environment, that they have a voice, that we care about what they have to say. They feel valued, respected, and included. They are invited to participate in the success of the organization. And that's what I do day in and day out. I love it. And if you think about it, the potential of that is, it'll blow your mind, because it's not only good for the employee from a career trajectory, right, their goals and ambitions, but it's good for the company. And when we think about DEI, we got to think about that. What's good for the company in meeting our desired goals, objectives, and outcomes. But if we can get there, let me change that. Not if, but when we get there, then we can exceed those. And so from a DEI perspective, we're working every day to create, I think our number one goal is those environments. So when you think about DEI, it's just counting people, right? Counting by race and gender. Think about the inclusion piece is making people matter, and we know that. And so we're really laser focused.
So creating environments is a big takeaway that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, because when you say creating environments, it shifts the perspective to, I'm not just working here.
That's right.
I'm getting an experience. I get that from Dawn when
Mhm.
people highlighted you and your regular job and they did that. And then I hear that, I feel like I just got an inspiration speech from you.
Good.
Now let me shift to Cynthia. You have the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. So she has OG&E. You have your day job that you do, and the organization that you're a part, the outstanding organization. But you are connected to, Cynthia, an array of organizations. And is there anything you want to highlight about anything that stands out, whether it's a Chamber of Commerce itself or an organization that you just really feel is setting a great example as far as DEI or anything when it comes to advantages for business growth is concerned?
You know, we are engaged in this work to support our member businesses because we understand right now talent is the number one biggest challenge that businesses have. And so you spend a lot of time, energy, effort to recruit talent if you can find them. And so it's really important that when you have someone that you value as an employee, that they have that sense of belonging. And so implementing these kinds of programs in the workplace is super important to that process. But so many companies don't have the luxury of a full-time person. So many people that do DE&I work are it's other duties as assigned. It's been added to their list of things to do over the last several years, and they may or may not have had the kind of formal training that they may need to be successful. So one of the big things that we wanted to do was give people access to those resources, and to provide we do a program called innovation, goodness. Inclusion at Work, which is for those people that are tasked with that work in their company, so they can come together and meet with other practitioners and learn from each other. And Dr. Carol, who's in the back of the room, she's been a speaker for Inclusion at Work before. But research shows that people who do this work, there's a very high burnout rate because it's tough, and sometimes you feel like you're pushing a ball up a hill and and then it rolls back over you. And so giving people resources to do a better job and to feel like they are not alone on an island where they may not have other people in their organization that know what to do or how to do it. And some of this is not as intuitive. The intuitive part is treating people well, but running the program is not always as intuitive. And we've got so much noise around these issues right now that it makes it even tougher. So giving people that safe place to talk and work together, and finding other ways that we can push additional resources. That's not the only piece of our program, but I think in the context of what we're talking about, it's probably the most important piece.
Okay. Well, I love that. It's creating work, creating safe spaces, creating environments, making sure people feel included, and making sure they feel like they have a voice to be able to do the work and embrace the environments that are created, and making sure recognition is a big part of not only just seeing the talent that's there, but solidifying the awesomeness that is you, the awesomeness that is we, the awesomeness that is a team. Let's take a step back to the advancements of DEI. I love, Rose, how you mentioned at OG&E, you don't just simplify it with DEI. It's really pushing the ethics. And I want to start with you, Dawn, Cynthia, and then we'll move on to Rose about the different ways people are highlighting and talking about DEI. I know for me, I've always heard it say DEI. Now it's Jedi. Now it's Jedi A. Now there's so many. Yeah. Let me settle down with my laughter. I saw Cynthia's face, so I want to speak on that. Initially, a lot of organizations call it diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now it's justice, equity, ethics. It's a lot of acronyms. And I would like to know, in your organization, how do you approach the title, or how do you approach how you recruit and make a safe space, and what efforts are being made? And then we can also share that with your organization, yours as well. Dawn, if you would start.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And just one point of clarification real
Yes.
quick. So I'm not actually with Outstanding or Involve. I'm with my company is called Reaplix. And then I'm also the co-founder of the Oklahoma Diversity Alliance, which is a new nonprofit here in Oklahoma that actually works with businesses to help them identify, because to your point, Cynthia, there's so many businesses out there, and we have a lot of small business here in Oklahoma that don't have a point person. So we're here to partner with them to identify how we can help create that DE&I space for that business to then help them with their organizational goals. I think, from my perspective, so I always love telling the story because it's true, and B, it happens to so many people that aren't in like that HR, like that space. So when I started, so an employee resource group, if anyone's familiar with it, companies will invest or they'll create these groups of people with similar, traits within that organization to help really give them a voice and better understand that group. Whether that group symbolizes closer to their customer base or anything. So back in like early 2018, my HR department put together a lunch and learn and said, hey, we want to get involved in these employee resource groups. And I was like, I have never even heard of what an ERG is, also what they're called is. So I joined the lunch and learn. And I was like, oh, this sounds really interesting. I want to learn more about it. And they said, okay, we want to start with two, which they called it the LGBTQ plus ERG, which I just said alphabet soup, and then also the women's organization, and that's the two they wanted to start with. And then they gave us an email that said, if you are interested, then send us an email, and if you want to lead it, clarify that as well. So I sent an email. I said I would love to be a part of it. I have no desire to lead it because I just learned what an employee resource group was. A couple of weeks went by, never heard anything, no further announcements from the organization. And I followed back up and I said, hey, I joined the lunch and learn. It sounded really interesting. I'd love to be a part of it. And they said, great. You and one other person from the UK reached out, so you guys go for it.
Sounds about right.
So I was like,
Sounds-
I just learned what an ERG is 2 weeks ago. I have no credentials to go and lead one. So I share that because, you know, we started back in mid 2018 with four employees within our employee resource group. We renamed it to Pride ERG because it was much more easy for everyone in the organization to say. And we grew that. So I left my prior company a couple of months ago, which is a really tough decision. But I left and we had almost 300 global employees, or we had 300 employees globally that were a part of our employee resource group. And that whole process is what really inspired me to get involved and help co-find Oklahoma Diversity Alliance. Is again, we didn't hire somebody dedicated to that space until like 2022, I think 2021 maybe. So that entire time, it was strictly employee driven. So I think from a business perspective, it's really important that you've got the buy-in from employees because you need that grassroots involvement, but then you also need, you know, this kind of top-down support as well. And there's that fine line between the two.
And
So-
Don, we'll come back. You are on fire. I love it. Thank you. I want to go back to what you said. You started with 2 to 4 members in the Pride Resource Group, and now you have about 300 who are engaged. So I think that's a good update. Cynthia, same question. Sorry, you're drinking. You're in your organization, whether it's where you are now or in your career. Where did you start when it comes to the topic of DEI, and where are you all now?
So when we started on this work, we felt like we needed a partner to implement this. We you know, honestly, the chamber leadership is primarily made up of mostly white men.
Okay.
And everybody knows that, I think. And we didn't feel like we were going to really have credibility to do this work without a partner. And so I've got something going on with, I'm so sorry. So we went out and decided to partner with the Urban League of Greater Oklahoma City to implement our work.
Wow.
We knew that they would be a trusted partner in the community. They were a trusted partner of ours, and that was we really needed a different level of perspective in order to bring our influence to bear in a way that would be respected and would be valuable. So
That's where you started. I love it. Take your time, drink some water, get that frog out of your throat.
it's an allergy, something going on here. So that's where we started. We also wanted to make sure the work we did really aligned with our mission and aligned with the other work that we do as an organization. So one piece of what we've been working on is around economic inclusion. During the pandemic, and 2018 is way back. It feels a long time ago. But we had done some work with some grant funding during the pandemic, and discovered that many of our minority businesses really struggled to get PPP loans and to get access to other grants because they didn't have access to the information, or they didn't have access to the banks, and so our the rate of those businesses being able to participate was much lower. And so we said we don't want to, and we did some follow-up work with EY to come in and help us understand that better. And so we didn't want to wait until there was another disaster before we implemented some things that would help shore up those businesses and to help us make sure we also had the information we needed to be more knowledgeable about what's happening in those communities. So 2 of the projects we're working on, one is a minority business support program, and to try and give more minority businesses the tools to be suppliers for corporations, for government, things of that nature. That's actually being executed right now through some ARPA funds and a partnership that the Urban League is running that we are a partner with them on. And then the second piece is looking at looking at a longitudinal data project for our community that is consistently tracking some of those data measures so that we don't wait until something goes wrong, that we're looking at them every year and saying, oh, wait a second, we have a problem here, we have a problem there, and we need to pull this lever and pull that lever. And how do we create a partnership around that data collection so that we're consistently looking at that together and enacting change as we go. So the city of Oklahoma City is taking the lead on that particular project, and we have a new project manager that's leading that. And so we're moving down the path to implement that as well. The third piece that we are working on and struggling a little bit, I will be honest, on the funding side, is we have a mentorship and leadership committee that wants to develop a toolkit for businesses. I mean, I think it's very much along the lines of what we've been talking about, that how do we give every business the ability to do this work and give them at least some guidance on how to start that. So the combination of a toolkit and some seminars and sessions to execute that. But we're still working on funding for that program, because really that committee, we want to find ways to see that our leadership starts to reflect our community. So in order for that to happen, that has to happen in businesses. It has to happen in all kinds of different organizations. So how do we start that work in the companies and in the member companies that we have? So some of that is about mentorship and leadership, but it's also about sponsorship. And there's a very big difference between those two. And so how do we help companies implement those sorts of programs so that where they see those potential leaders, that they have the tools to help them be a success?
Well, big takeaway I have from what you've shared is your approach is more strategy based. You all are aware, hey, we're talking about DEI, but our leadership is older white men. No one's really going to trust us. Who do we need to partner with? And then you use not only the leadership that you have, but the community to work with the Urban League and to make sure everyone who wants to be involved, regardless of what they look like, they can help. And you have 3 systems in place in strategic planning. Don, your team is more grassroots. And now, Rose, I want to shift to you. You gave us a lot of inspiration, and it's the same question. So if you could just tell us where OG&E started when it came to DEI, remind us where you are now, and then anything else. And then we'll open it up, if it's okay, to questions to our community here in our luncheon.
Okay, thank you. So the position that I have was created less than 2 years ago. And as probably many of you know, the reasons you have investors, the ESG became a big thing, and it was a lot going on. But historically, I have worked in the space of being more diverse in terms of counting people by race and gender in the affirmative action. We have affirmative action programs, 15 actually. But that was something we had to do because we're a federal contractor. So when I took this role, began this role, I maintained that, but we decided we needed a strategy. And so I cobbled together, I created a team, and it's an executive steerco, a DEI executive steerco, cross-functionally, and they are officers in the company. And we talked about who do we want to be, where are we trying to go? And we came up with goals, and that included community, that included the foundation spin. Are we more inclusive in our giving than exclusive? So we got to consider everyone in our communities. One of my goals was we want to be a top workplace. Well, we are, but we're working to achieve that goal because it's based on what your employees, we call them members, what they think. And so this is our second year taking it. Hopefully we get good news. And the other one was that, as you said, the employee resource groups, which we call ours member resource groups, because we call our employees members, and membership surely has its privileges.
Can you say member one more time?
Members.
Okay.
And so within the time that I've started this, and to now we've established the goals, we have a plan, and we've now have 10 member resource groups, and they are employee-led, member-led, member-initiated. We didn't say go create this. They created it, and they are on fire. And they are participating in our community, volunteering collectively, which is important. We have 3 goals. We want to grow our members, we want to grow our business, and we want to grow our communities, right? And those are the goals that the member resource groups have a lot of other things. The last thing, though, that I'll tell you is that so talent we're trying to find talent. We're trying to find people who are equipped, right? They have the knowledge, skills, abilities to be able to do the jobs. But when you can't find it, you got to create it. And so we are partnering with high schools. We have a high school program, and we bring in high school students and let them work in our power plants and learn the trade, which is extraordinary to me. It's an opportunity they never thought that they would have. And we also partner with OSU OKC. So we've historically had other programs at the other campuses, but we knew we needed to get that non-traditional student, right? Because when you think about a good job, and I say this all the time, when we think about this, it's just about people having really good jobs so they can take care of their families and contribute and help other people, right? We are laser focused on our communities at OGE. And so we actually helped sponsor an instructor because they didn't have one until they could get one, and provided a grant. And so now we have students going through the program. They come and they work as interns, and hopefully we hire some of those students. We are hiring them, but we want to continue to do that. And so when you don't have that readily available, we have to think outside the box. How do we create that? Now we're working with OSU, that's helping them on that campus. And the high schools, we're working with them. I mean, because you got to start early. And so several other programs that I could go into, but I won't. But you got to, because this has to be integrated. It has to be integrated into your hiring, how you're doing that, has to be integrated to organizational development. Are we keeping them? Has to be integrated into where you are giving money, your foundation. Customer centricity is another big piece of what we're doing. We got to take care of our customer, right? And so we want people to feel good about our company so they help our customers. That's the most important thing. And again, we're growing our members, our employees. We're growing our communities, which is huge. Every member gets 16 hours to go and volunteer out in our communities. And then we're growing our business, right, for our shareholders.
Well, Rose, thank you so much. And if you ever do a symposium or seminar, I will be the first one to sign up. So you have strategy, you have employee resource groups, you have partnerships, which is a lot of what everyone is doing. Partnerships, strategy, grassroots, it's all connected. And I feel an overflow from all three of you. Rose, Cynthia, Dawn, I feel like you also had so much more to say. So if it's okay, I'd like to open up the... Yes.
You did, the metrics and data that you worked on were a part of your award that it mentioned in the about how you collected your data and your metrics on DEI.
And working with, so one of the things, so being, so whenever we founded the Pride Employee Resource Group at my prior company, we were the only employee resource group for about 3 years. I think it was about 2.5 to 3 years. And so the biggest thing I kept going back to our HR leaders and executives saying, you know, if we're going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we can't just have one employee resource group. And, you know, we need to bring more and more people to the table. So one of the things that we were really looking at doing was how can we, you know, massive global company, how can we identify and track like where we are so then we can put the metrics in place to then strive for those goals. And so we worked, you know, I worked with a lot of senior leaders to identify like, okay, you know, what is our DE&I strategy? What is our ESG strategy going to be? How are we going to, what's employee well-being? Like, how do we focus on that? So that was, you know, really the big part. So it was something that towards the end of my time there, we really started putting numbers in place and tracking that. And a lot of it has to be a, you know, volunteer basis. So when we talk about like sexual orientation, I mean, many years of my life, I never would have lived in Oklahoma and said my sexual orientation being gay until, you know, I felt comfortable in a workplace to where I could be my, you know, true authentic self. So you've got to create that space for your employees to where they feel okay to say, you know, yes, I fit into this category.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, if it's okay, I'd like to open up the floor to questions. We're gonna, yes, that's yay, everyone. I'll look it so those who are joining us virtually will be able to. So I saw 3 hands so far. Are you going to be helping me with the question? Okay, great. Well, then I'll just sit here and can we have one mic? Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna borrow yours. If you wouldn't mind sharing microphones as
Yeah.
people ask the questions. Okay. Who
so
has a question?
1, 2, and then 3. So or 3, 2, and 1. That's fine.
Oh, sorry.
Great. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. My name's Andrew. One question that comes to mind is for, especially with the economy right now, for a small business. I know, Donald, you said you were thinking about the small business. I forget the specific name of the nonprofit, but what are some low-hanging fruit, some practical steps that small business owners can take in this regard where, you know, I imagine they think of the corporate aspect over here out of reach. What are some things that can happen down here where I'm bootstrapping, I'm low on cash, low on time, but I still want to prioritize this? What are some things that we can be doing, and what's some advice that we can give out in that regard?
Yeah, great question. So I think the biggest part, because when we talk about like small businesses and everything, I mean, these could be just a handful of employees. I think probably the best opportunity that a company can do is really just to start acknowledging all of the whether it's holidays, awareness days, acknowledgement months, because those are the customers that they're serving. So if they're putting that out there, then they're kind of widening their net to a larger customer base in hopes that maybe they can grow. And again, it just allows people to know that that's a safe company to go shop at or be a part of, or whatnot.
Anyone else would like to answer that? If not, it's okay. All right, and we have 2.
I will also
members.
say there are some really great free resources for someone that wants to get engaged in this work. There's some online certification programs that are completely free. Is it Florida? I'm going to get this wrong. There's a university in Florida that offers an online certification program for free. And so there are great learning resources out there. And that's another place to go. And we'll give it to you in just a second.
I wasn't going to comment. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. I just think that for one, you look at your demographics. That's a place you start. So that informs your thinking around your recruiting efforts, right? How do you cast a wider net? And then the other thing is really important, being very intentional about inclusion in the work environment, and being okay having tough, hard conversations about different issues that may come up that your employees might be interested in. The other thing you can do is survey them to see what do they really feel, and make sure you have questions related to DEI in the survey so you can get a baseline for comparative data of how they feel about working there.
Thank you all so much. And we have 2 questions. Oh, great.
Rose, have you ever heard of Edison Electric Institute?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes they go by EEI.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And will you introduce yourself to the community? No, okay.
I'm anonymous.
Give me your thoughts on voluntary versus mandatory.
And before they enter that question, will you introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are?
I'm Elizabeth, the film historian.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And
I
voluntary.
need more context as it relates to that question, please.
Well, some companies require their employees to participate in these programs, and for some of them it's mandatory. I'm sorry, some of them it's mandatory, some of them it's voluntary. But a lot of times if it's voluntary, it's only the people who don't need it who are volunteering to participate. So anyway, do you have any thoughts on whether these kinds of programs in your organization and participation in them should be voluntary or mandatory?
I'd like to kick that answer off, actually, because I am very, very much against mandatory involvement, especially when we talk about like employee resource groups or member resource groups. So I think that whenever you require your employees to do that, I think that comes from a place on a business level that, it almost makes it seem like you're more so checking the box. And I think that that's where businesses kind of get into a tough spot with that, because when employees feel like they're just going to check that box that, yes, we're part of this, DE&I move and diversity, equity, inclusion, and we're a diverse workforce, and we talk about it on social media and things like that. But then behind the scenes, their actions aren't really promoting that too much. Then that becomes a bit of a disconnect. And then you don't have employees wanting to volunteer because they don't feel like they're actually implementing change within the business. So I think that there's a middle ground. Like you've got to cultivate, I think, the environment first as a business to be able to say, yes, we embrace and we support and we celebrate everybody within our business and our customers. You've got to create that environment first, and then employees will then want to volunteer. So it's kind of a process that you've got to follow before you say, this is what we're going to do. Nobody does it. Okay, now everybody's got to do it. You're going to have an uphill battle.
Thank you, Dawn. Cynthia Rose?
I think a lot of this is about psychological safety in the workplace. And so I think forcing someone to participate in something impacts their sense of belonging. And so as much as you might want everyone to participate, that can backfire pretty quickly.
I totally agree with you. And like I said, on our member resource groups, they're voluntary, they are member-led, and the member actually creates it. They develop it, right? And they send in for approval, and but they are in charge of everything. So I think it flies in the face of that belonging and the environment we're trying to create by forcing people. The idea is to create an environment where people want to participate, not just in the MRGs, et cetera, but in the fully participate in the success of the organization. That's the idea. That's what we're trying to get.
These are really engaging questions. I want to thank you all so much. Is anyone else? Yay.
Ronnie Williams. I think Rose summed it up best when she said, and I agree, that I don't know anybody that doesn't believe that the more diverse input they have in their organization is the only way to be able to reach more customers, more people, more whatever. But the perception out there, some of us, and I've been, before hearing some of this, I would have fallen into this category, but the perception more is that it's diversity of everything except thought. And part of the rationale for wanting all that diversity and to reach more customers and whatever is to have a broader range of thought. How can you maybe change that perception?
And that's a great question. We're just going to repeat it so you hear it. On the highlight was, how do we address the perception of diversity in thought? Anyone want to take the lead? I guess.
No. I do think we've got we're taking a strong look at how is it that we talk about this work. What are the words we use around this work? And I don't think there's a good answer. I mean, I think this relates to your other question about the alphabet soup and the initials and what are we calling?
How did you start?
What are we
Yeah.
calling things this
What are you
week?
doing
Because it's so emotional for some people, and it's there's such reaction and there's some fear that's involved. So how do we talk about this work in a way that people understand the true intent? And I think that's something we've all got to work on. And that's, I think having conversations like these helps you do that. It helps, everyone's opinion is important. And so understanding what it is about the language, and we have a lot of long, in-depth conversations about this at my workplace. How do we talk about this in a way that really shows the true intent of what we're trying to accomplish, and how do we do a better job of that, so that we can continue to do this work in a meaningful way?
Rose, Dawn?
Yeah, I have a quick thought on that. So in everything we do, we have to be more inclusive than exclusive. That includes the language that you use as it relates to that, especially depending on your population, because we need people working, right? And not thinking about being left out, or that something is being taken from them. And so when I talk about this in our organization, I say, if your son or daughter wants a job, people think about diversity, they think race and gender. We define diversity as anything that makes me different than you, right? It's the full range of differences. Sky and I in the same room, we have a lot of diversity. I don't know what her religion is. It's what you see and what you don't see. And that is valuable because it helps with business decisions, right? And so I think the most important thing is to be very thoughtful and intentional about how you talk about this, not alienating people, and having examples and storytelling of how this includes everyone. Diversity is anything that makes me different than you, right? And so that, I think, is what I keep. That's my mantra, right? And so the diversity work includes everyone. It's not just race and gender. Quite frankly, I don't even have to use the word diversity, right? And regardless of who you are, race or gender, I want everyone to have an opportunity to work for the amazing organization that I work for. Okay. And I'm being very serious. I think it is amazing. And I want everyone to have a fair and equitable opportunity to compete for the job. So I'm going to get people in the pool, but then may the best person win, period. And so it's the language that we use.
I want to get to the point of this question, maybe, because I think we got far afield.
Okay.
You said thought. I'm sorry, Rhonda, you said thought. What kind of thought are you talking about? Because I think you hit a nerve there that I've heard as well. Are they addressing that question? Because I'm wondering what happens to people that just don't care for this kind of training. They need to be included as well in some way. Is that correct?
Put you to work.
Partially, but the perception is that anytime you see DEI or ESG, it becomes a political whipping tool. So
Yeah.
politics has overruled the good you're trying to do. And so it gets tuned down.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's one that I talk about a lot. And in the formation of the Oklahoma Diversity Alliance, our board, we were very meticulous on how we wanted to name it, because the word diversity in itself is, to your point, it's become a bit of a politicized word. I think, when it comes to thought, everybody has a right to their own opinion. I think it becomes a very key differentiator in this whenever then your thoughts become actions. And what the trouble with that and how it can happen is that we all have unconscious biases. Every one of us does. And that also has become a kind of a politicized word as well, unconscious bias training. But we do. There's some exercises that I do have done for some businesses, when we talk about like boarding a plane and, close your eyes and all this stuff. But we do. We don't know about it because it's unconscious. So I think that's where it's really important to get all of these differences in thought and background and perceptions, to be able to have those discussions in an open way, and in a safe space as well, where you can say, I don't understand how this is XYZ. And then you can, maybe get insights and information. I do also know, and I feel very strongly about this, that what we hear on the news is definitely the extremes as well. We hear about some of these like wild things that happen on both sides. And really where the bulk of what's happening is, in rooms like this today, where we're having, reasonable and civil conversations. So I think that's where, and you talked about mantra, Rose. One of my life mantras is your intent shines through. So if your intent is to hurt somebody's feelings with a question or something, then that's probably going to come off that way. If it's not, and it's just coming from a place of understanding, that's probably going to come off as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Please give a round of applause to our panel. Panelists, I'll ask that you sit here for just a moment. We'll have our MC Carrie close us out. And then as you are able to, please continue to spend time, network, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon, the luncheon.
Thank you all again for being here today. And thank you especially to Minder School of Business for allowing us this space to have these conversations, these very important conversations with each other in a civil manner and learning from each other. So if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to come up and talk to them after we conclude today. Thank you all again for being here. Oh, yeah. And don't forget to get gas. Yeah.